I refuse to stand on ceremony. Evil Dead is the god of horror. Oh yeah, now it's a party. Despite what you just saw, I'm not trying to unleash an evil curse on you. Well, we're not there yet at least. This is Evil Dead, and if you're not familiar, these films are truly nasty experiences to put yourself through. Blood and bits of sick are what you're going to come looking for, and eventually you might end up just like the rest of us. Not knowing quite what horror ever looked like without it, but still unable to nail the why of it all. The thing is with Evil Dead, it's a success story, launching historic film careers. But at the same time, if we're honest, it can kind of be an unfocused mess that maybe has gone on longer than it should have. It's only ever returned to evolve what's come before, but every time it has, it's managed to escape me. I can call it the gore, I can call it the charm, but really, it's just a near indescribable vibe that makes me love Evil Dead. Something so nebulous that just, damn it, I know it when I see it. Writer and director Lee Cronin's resurrection of the series, Evil Dead Rise, being damn near drenched in that feeling. I knew I'd always someday be getting around to this icon, but until a few weeks ago, I wasn't quite as compelled as, well, I damn well needed to be. Now though, after having heard the chant of 3 very particular words, I'm ready. In fact, forget ready. After this film, I am damn near possessed, trapped in the fever of needing to bring you all to hell with me. Screaming those 3 words all the way. Dead by Dawn. The Evil Dead is a legend written in blood, soaked on the pages of cinema's most evil book, the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, or as it's known today, the Notorum de Monto. Unleashed upon those unsuspecting, curious, and downright unlucky enough to discover it, reciting its dark verses spells the people that you loved possessed by an evil that you must tear apart before it does the same to you. The deliciously gory vision of the genius Sam Raimi, it's a formula that's adapted to incorporate into the picture whatever has willed Raimi or his main star Bruce Campbell to return to the series. As such, in the same way that you can't quite picture Psycho without Hitchcock, Evil Dead has never really felt quite right without Sam or Bruce behind the wheel in some capacity. Whilst they've never actually fully walked away from the project, each have outgrown it in their own ways, touching on something new elsewhere, or bringing what Evil Dead brought to the table to its natural close with other projects. It's the reason that those who have inherited the series have sat under such scrutiny. The previous attempt at doing something new with the Necronomicon, Fede Alvarez's 2013 reimagining of The Evil Dead, a film that I've spent the better part of a decade loving and defending, always stuck existing in the looming shadow of what came before. Such differing stances on what this series should ultimately be, has ultimately been responsible for depriving us of more of it for so long. Most fans unwilling to see Evil Dead without the hands that made it what it was, and others depressed to see the series kind of shackled to them. 2023 might just be remembered as the year where there was finally a light to be found in the dark though. Lee Cronin revving up a chainsaw of his own and tearing a new rendition that reconciles both visions into our flesh. Trying to win over even the staunchest of doubters by pointing to those 3 Necronomicons seen all the way back in 1992 and saying Sam gets a book, Alvarez gets a book, and now here's mine. When Alvarez was making his Evil Dead film, he told a story that I happen to think is kind of important to all of this. When he was asked how he discovered the horror for himself, he told a story that he was handed it in a video rental store at 12 years old after he asked for something real. The story paints this nostalgic picture that I would kind of hate to just see stuck as a memory. Future generations are always going to seek out the classics, I have no doubt about that. But honestly, the competition these days is getting really damn impressive. And I want Evil Dead to still have a fighting chance in that conversation. For that reason, I have to say, Mr. Lee Cronin, Take a bloody bow. I stand by every choice that you made as wholly necessary. Thank you for shaking this tree for its own damn good. Divorced from our cabin in the woods setup, Evil Dead Rise is plain and simple, a family story. Struggling mum Ellie, close to not being able to keep a roof over the heads of her kids, Bridget, Danny, and Cassie, has to contend with her usually busy sister Beth, choosing to rock up at her door struggling with an unexpected pregnancy. Their apartment, soon to be demolished anyway, is hit by an earthquake that leads to a chance discovery of the Naturum de Monto. Plucked from the ground in hopes of offering financial salvation, it instead unleashes the typical carnage that we worship in this franchise. The whole affair falls firmly into the recent Hellraiser or Prey category. No time wasted on justifying its existence or slapping on a supposedly different coat of paint like Halloween, Child's Play, or Scream. This is an exercise in cracking back open a toy box that's not been played with as much as it should have. Cronin delivers an accessible first cut of meat that dares to talk about the regret, intimacy, and hurt that you can only feel with family. So to start talking about any of it, we've got to start with that high-rise. What we're playing with is a significantly more interesting architectural space. Having the home, adjacent hallway, elevator, and the parking garage of this apartment complex to explore enabled the team to experiment with what similarities can be drawn to the original setting, as well as devise interesting replacements to what cannot be transferred. This isn't just a bunch of cute 20-somethings excited to escape to a cabin for the weekend. This is a crammed spot where you can damn near taste the heat. There isn't immediately an axe or a chainsaw to pick up right in the next room, but objects are ready to be turned into equal tools for destruction, if imagination is applied. Sure, the kitchen maybe doesn't communicate Evil Dead like the woodshed or the trapdoor might, but if I can play with something like maybe a cheese grater in this room, then it's going to build a legacy of its own. Where in the cabin there's really no escape, you just pray that you somehow make it until dawn, the high-rise offers tangible means for escape. If you manage to find a way past possessed murder mummy, then it's down the elevator, out through the garage, and out to freedom. But even that simplicity, that proximity, is toyed with. The earthquake cripples the building as much as it does the family, progress to escape constantly halted, electrifying the pacing. Cronin honestly doesn't give them a moment to rest, the situation constantly gets worse, problems to solutions that they don't come up with, meaning that more of this family doesn't make it out alive. To me, it's extremely reminiscent of James Cameron's Aliens. Cronin offering up the most deadites since Raimi decided to throw a skeleton army at us all the way back in 1992, but the environment itself where all this is happening is just as much of an antagonist. Compensating for the lack of the sustained violence of Evil Dead 2013, with its gore every new cut, by allowing for even these moments of levity to have the icy grip of evil still feel inescapable. This is a space that I've lived in variants of myself, that I don't want to turn into a battlefield, despite how much it's actually begging to become one, because this is a home that the cabin in the woods never was. Okay, I really don't understand this recent trend in horror films of designing a home and making no effort to make it look as though any human being has ever lived there. Yeah, I don't work in this industry, so maybe my opinion means nothing, but leaving noticeable marks of a history that you don't even need to elaborate on is detail that should be the bare minimum. This film gets that the family photos, the posters on the walls, and the marks on the wallpaper says nothing about this family, but it conveys a realism and a familiarity that, just like in Perfect Blue, Resident Evil, or hell even Batman, can be twisted to show just how far into hell we've descended. It's the reason I think I care about this family as much as I do, because they grow on you as soon as you're in their home. These people are actually likeable without being lovable assholes, teasing the youngest sibling, screaming at them when they won't turn their music down, groaning because mum's a bit of a smartass. This is a cast that must have had some fun together, because what they radiate made me want to sit at that table and share some pizza with them. I admit that we don't get to know them as well as we'd maybe like to, but I think that we needed to be robbed of that. The conversations I wanted them to have go unspoken, a taste of how much this should be hurting. The 2013 Evil Dead is straight up the nastier film, but Rise offers perspectives that can just be so damn cruel. Opening up the Naturum de Monto is enabled to be a conscious choice over a strictly curious one. The bust of Christ falling and trying to stop evil is a futile attempt because this kid has the best of intentions, because he wants to maybe be the man of the house, Of course a kid with his heart in the right place ignored all of these red flags.
You think it might be worth something? Mom could do with some extra money right now, don't you think?
It's in general a genius choice from Cronin to make half his main cast be kids in this situation, because their heads are going to be in an even worse state. They're going to be tempted in a way that only they can be. Of course it's going to be a kid who will listen to the devil saying,
"Come on now. Do it for Mom and Dad."
They're also going to freeze, and that's real. It's going to hurt me, but if I'm in this situation, I can maybe stop a coworker or a best friend, but there's 4 people on Earth where I probably wouldn't even fight back. That same hesitance constantly taken advantage of in this script, only one of these kids eventually seeing through the illusion and turning on that fateful wood chipper. I can look at any of those choices, any of that willingness to deviate as my reason to honestly say, Warner Bros, give this man whatever he wants next. Lee Cronin's book, just like the last 2, has a past, and I sincerely hope that we get to see the future it deserves. I really don't want to picture Evil Dead without Sam or Bruce, but after Cronin's effort, I really don't want the picture to be of just them, because with filmmaking like this, the Necronomicon has never felt quite like pure hell as this does. The oh-so-beloved gore that it's been killing me to not talk about sooner arrives early and makes its presence known. I don't honestly think it's a requirement of the genre to deliver on gore like Evil Dead does, especially when you can devise as uncomfortable alternatives. It remains gratifying though when I've had to rely on the likes of Dead Space, The Last of Us, and good old Resident Evil for the gore I need, for Evil Dead to then return to deliver in spades what I think film has been kind of lacking. There's nothing as intense as purposefully removing your own limb, but the blast of a shotgun devastates the human form, and flesh is clay for the Deadites to have their fun with. Save for the youngest child in the cast, nobody avoids punishment from the Deadites. Marks left on this family that none of them can just shrug off. The fake blood, like this film's predecessor, is measured in tons. It's a completely off-the-rails glee to see how far you can push some of this stuff that feels like it could have been plucked solely from the brain of someone who was raised on films like this. Hearing that there was also this blood meth lab where they stored all the stuff? That's just one of those wonders of the world that I'm going to be forever depressed I never got the chance to see in person. It's a heck of a lot of fake blood that our cast gets covered in, a sort of strange outlier today where most casts can barely have a bruise touch their faces. When it comes to that cast though, I kind of can't really think of anyone I'd rather see covered in that blood. Morgan Davies carries this exceptional ability to, as soon as the terror starts, draw my eyes directly onto him in every scene. There is a sheer panic from everybody when dealing with the Deadites, but Danny conveys guilt most of all. It's a constant look of regret, the racing guilt of look how badly I fucked up, being something that Davies makes look like it's eating Danny alive. His final line to his little sister being one that never fails to just kill me inside.
I'm sorry, Cass.
Also, just take a look at Cassie. We honestly need to give a little round of applause for Nell Fisher. All the kids deserve one, but damn, especially her. She watches and deals with all of this happening around her, and sells it perfectly. Massive props to her even doing her own stunts too. I turned to my friend after the film was done, and I asked him just, how the hell did they show any of that to her? That's how lost in this performance I got. Alyssa Sutherland's performance as Ellie is the piece that confirmed to me like nothing else when watching though, that Evil Dead was back. If you just watch what she accomplishes in almost any scene, then you're going to begin to understand why the internet has latched onto this performance like it has. I can remember years ago, not long after the release of La La Land, when it was argued that Emma Stone deserved the Oscar for a performance that was lacking in no department. She sings, she dances, she makes us cry, she deserves all the praise under the sun. Well, frankly, Alyssa Sutherland is doing the same thing here. Stunt work, charm, resilience, chemistry, and that voice. Hers might just be the best Deadite performance there's ever been. She just flips on a dime in a way that makes me forget it's a performance. There's just this bone-achingly cold relentlessness from her, as visible when she's screeching her lungs out trying to force her way through that front door, and just as much when her eyes refuse to stay shut. It's the kind of acting that genuinely keeps me up late at night thinking about it, that the bodies whose recognition supposedly matters are definitely going to overlook. Oh, it kills me to say it, but she's gonna be the next Toni Collette, the next Lupita Nyong'o. Work that is near flawless, work that we will spend years likely wondering just how others can't see what we can. Work that simply yelled, "Recognize her." Recognize horror. Horror is craft, skilled hands, delicate or risk-taking that can yield results as worthy as any alternative. The craft on show here being incredibly enviable to witness and rewarding to consume. The often engulfing stink of a studio being nowhere in this production. It's a real breath of fresh air to see studio-backed horror approached like an indie or even an A24 project. Where the other biggest horror of 2023 had like one sick shot and never aspired to aim any higher, Rise goes the distance. It incorporates interesting framing. It relishes in extreme close-ups. It works with silhouettes. And damn, it made me jump out of my chair when I noticed the split diopter shots. Let me tell you, I spent a month in an attic shooting a short film trying to get these to work right, and it seems like I'm the only person who cares about them these days, so to see them done so well here had me frankly screaming. DP Dave Garbett is the man responsible, and I want to shake his hand for it, as well as for not offering any light in this film that he didn't need to. When the time comes, the guy just chooses to paint on black. The delicious, murky lighting that this genre often doesn't know what it's doing with, doing this apartment so many damn favours. The fixtures they went with are minimal, and they offer a tempered glow that really I would cut my hands off to be able to recreate to a similar standard. Also, we're kind of talking about a small space, so that soundscape needs to be turned straight up to 11. You might just think it would be the voice of the demon that's the only thing that gets the real punch, but in reality it's everything in the room. From the simplest ping of an elevator to the eruption of a shotgun. No corners were cut when it came to our immersion. You can genuinely tell that they used their budget where it counted, and that's something that's actually only possible with a script this good. I'd understand if you felt like the prologue and the epilogue bookends feel a little bit wonky, but even then I'm just forcing myself to be picky, and it's an ignorable fact when this is what's in those segments too. Just for the record, I massively vibe with someone who sticks a flex like this in his script, and then goes the distance to adapt it. Please don't take this the wrong way, but there's almost this amateurishness present all the way back in the original film that you can kind of feel traces of here. These people definitely know what they're doing, but what's being done feels scrappy. You can spot a script that's developing practical solutions and accommodating moments of creativity when it can, giving them time to breathe. This is all held together with string and paper clips, but by God it's working and we're rolling with it. There are moments in this film with certain shots where Lee Cronin has got me thinking, "Oh, just look behind you," or "Ugh, I do not want to look at that." There are tons of these just straight in your face moments of terror, but there are just as many moments where the visage is withheld. He really relishes in making us sit in that grey area. The audience terrified of what happens when that head finally turns, and the kids begging that the person they love is still in there. Getting the logistics of that together screams hard work. I mean, just take a look at this scene. You've got to make eating fake glass safe and look convincing enough. You've got to choreograph getting Bridget off the counter in the way that she does. You've got to rig somehow getting the cheese grater into her hand, and then you've got to sort the prosthetics to do that cheese grater justice when it's taken away some flesh. I mean, just one of these pieces could have been all that a lesser effort would strive to achieve. But instead, these guys went the full 8 mile. I adore a film put together like a puzzle like this, and at times, Cronin's script comes close to resembling a Rian Johnson joint. It's that intricate. You stick the scissors here for later, you set up the vent as an option. It's very economic writing, the pieces of behind the scenes that Cronin has been generous enough to share being so enlightening and inspiring. This may be my eagerness talking, but it's the kind of material that you can just push onto people, like we used to do with Sam Raimi's work just to get them excited about filmmaking. What makes a worthy inheritor of a franchise like this? It's creativity. If you prove you've got that, then to me you've earned the right. You evoke the kind of feeling that was the standard for the era that the original films were born in. Design, camera work, costuming, makeup, editing, performance or direction. They build a truly worthy follow-up to Raimi's work, and even 2013's Nightmares. The highest praise that I can offer being that I don't see a single piece of this aging poorly. Before I wrap this up, there's one final note that I really need to touch on. So without further ado, let's talk about Deadites. There really are very few others, honestly, who can really sway the conversation for me on what's the best breed of movie monster. They really don't scare me, I'll be honest about that. When it comes to the mountain of terrors that I've experienced, they're just honestly not the scariest things going. However, I maintain that they are the most superior choice to throw into any kind of situation. If it's not a dark force of nature or the perfect organism, then it just simply must be these guys. They are the perversion of The Exorcist and the looming rage of The Shining. It's no surprise really why series like Alan Wake, Doom, or again Resident Evil have aped on the concept as much as they have. It's that damned effective. Mainly just because these bastards play dirty. Vomit and dismemberment for their own maniacal or comic glee is always the guaranteed outcome with these guys. And somewhere in that mix you're gonna yell, "Go to hell" at these things. But eventually you're also going to yell, "The thing that hurts," that maybe you might never have said if this wasn't happening. The Deadites make us as angry as they are. They wear a facade of the people we love, but that's tempered with an impatience. They want to get to that bloodshed as soon as possible. So if pretending to be Mummy isn't getting it through its obstacles, then it's going to let the mask slip, and do the same thing to us. It's going to say back to you the thing that hurts the most when it comes from your sister or your mum, and then you slip up, you make a mistake, and you pay for it really quickly. Because it doesn't matter if you're possessed yet or not, evil will get under your skin in one way or another. It's also got to be said from a narrative, or I guess a logic perspective maybe, that I really kind of don't care how these things can just somehow manipulate technology or literal physics. I just love that we work and vibe with the logic of, would that be scary if they could do that? If that's the case, then this script doesn't choose to be precious about anything. Stating fiercely, you bet your ass that's what evil can do tonight. That same mentality extended to the lore and the rules of the Deadites too. The classic tricks to take evil apart not quite clicking as they should. Torching them, dismemberment, that's just not a thing anymore. The Deadites cemented as some inevitable force that you don't put down, you just escape. Set truly apart in an already quite old franchise, as the first monsters who will always, as the title suggests, rise. They were always going to find their way out of the book. The building was going to get knocked down anyway. The book would have eventually been found, but evil didn't want to wait. The earthquake came early because evil isn't patient. What was happening to this family was too good to pass up. Especially what was happening with Beth. There isn't admittedly time to do with Beth what there was with Ash, and leave them as just this radically different person by the end of our time with them, but she still isn't wholly the same person by the end of it either. Just look at how much is on her shoulders. As if being pregnant isn't enough, her sister's last true words to her are,
"Don't let it take my babies."
damn, it is just not her night. She turned up at her sister's door looking for support, looking for some small comfort that being a mum can be more than what she currently thinks it means. The eventual marauder, the amazing final boss, the beast with 3 backs, showing up to present a horrible possible answer to that. Mummy quite sickeningly keeping the family together. Beth has never really been okay with her impending future. Even tonight, as the only adult left in the room for the kids to look to, her potential future role is taking shape far too early. So what better time is there to throw straight at her the worst possible idea of what this reality looks like in its most extreme form? The Marauder itself is just a work of art. It's a creature that feels like it hasn't worked as successfully since the days of John Carpenter's The Thing. It doesn't unfortunately get to exist on the screen for very long, but in the time it has, it enters the canon of the greats, like the works of Stan Winston or Greg Nicotero, a spot that it maybe earned, perhaps because just like with those other classic abominations, you will not find a greater catharsis than seeing this blob shredded to bits. A very strong mark of character or story work to me is when what I like to call the "get away from her you bitch" moment is offered up and completely nailed, like in films like Nope, Aliens, or even Evil Dead 2013. It's that instance where I just punch the air because I want this moment for them. Beth's burning hot final threat to the Deadites saying, "I'm not the scared kid who turned up here anymore. And guess what, sucker? You're the reason why."
Come get some.
She hasn't come to the sudden realization that she's going to be a good mother, or that she even wants to be one, just that she's got this. She can handle what comes her way. She's not afraid anymore. She takes that chainsaw with her, not ready for when the Deadites choose to come back, but maybe just to mark how far she's come tonight. Cronin choosing to give us our closest glimpse yet of that classic Hollywood ending, something typically unwelcome in this franchise. There being more than one survivor left to see the sun. The friend that I saw this film with can back me up when I say that I was sat cackling in my seat on our first viewing, so a video on this film for that reason was kind of inevitable really. I set out with the intention to originally just beg for more. Interesting cards have been left on the table. What happened with the priests? What happens to Beth and Cassie the next morning? Please, whoever is in charge, just don't make me wait another 10 years to see who finds this book next. After writing this video though, I think I've arrived somewhere else. Every director has used this series to leave a mark of their own on the industry. One of my earliest memories of going to the cinema was seeing Spider-Man 2 at the theatre, a moment that wouldn't exist without the start that Raimi got for himself. Alvarez created a true outlier for its time that, even today, doesn't really have many equals, that I've been defending since my earliest days on the internet. This film, however, will hopefully be a new testament to why horror belongs on the big screen. No audience wants another Prey situation. We do not want to see our horror films on streaming only. If a studio tries to tell the next generation any different, then I have another new legend to prove otherwise for decades to come. All that's left to say, I guess, is Groovy. People, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I understand that it's a little bit different from what I usually tackle on this channel, but we're trying to branch out a little bit, try something new. Don't worry, my typical focus on animation and video games will always be a part of the channel, and there'll be more of it very soon. But I figured, hey, my audience could do with being a little bit possessed. I'm not too sure when the next video will be, but until then, take care of yourselves.